teach architecture at Morgan State right now as a lecturer. My story, I grew up in the Ludlow community in Shaker Heights, Ohio. It was a community where white flight did not happen intentionally. The white community, when my family moved in, I was quite young, so I didn't really know the experience. But when my family moved in, the idea was to basically do something like we're doing here now, is actually have a community understanding of who we are and why. So my upbringing was very diverse. It had everything. It was a gumbo of students. And as a child, nothing matters except who's cool and who's not, and you just have fun and play. So my living, as far as from that, I think my experience is something I've always wanted to get back to, but I think I've never really had as difficult a time being in different types of neighborhoods, because a lot of my family lived in more segregated neighborhoods, and then my immediate family was in this diverse neighborhood of Cleveland, Shaker Heights. So that being said, moving years later, I knew I wanted to do architecture from probably when I was about 10 years old or so. And all of my schooling, I was probably the only African American on every picture you can imagine. We went all over the world, traveling and taking shots, and you see me, standing there smiling. Not only African American, which has never been an issue for me directly. Then I got a position. I've been teaching a few different places and practice as well. I got a position at the University of Michigan, which was a very interesting experience where I had a department chair who had taken to me. And a lot of the work that I was doing, he was celebrating the work that I was doing, which I was glad to have. So publications were coming out, design projects, exhibits. I was being invited to a lot of schools that are high-end design schools, which is what I wanted. And then I had a student, actually it wasn't my student, he was another professor, it was a student who came to me, and he was an African-American student at University of Michigan, one of the largest graduate programs in the country for architecture. Out of like 100 students, there might be 6 or 3 African-American students. So he had an issue. He came to me looking for his professor because he didn't agree with his grade. I told him I can't change your grade. You have to find your professor and attach to him. And I said, you should talk to the chair. I'm going to say first is Tom. You have to talk to Tom because he's accessible and I think he'll listen to you. And then the student asked me if I ever had any issues or know any African Americans that have had issues throughout schooling. And I've heard many stories. Now, I say my experience is probably different. I felt a little more privileged. But I do know a lot of African Americans have had issues and problems. Even some of my classmates, as I came through, that didn't make it out in the field. So then I said, talk to Tom, talk to the chair. He went down, spoke to a chair. I got a call an hour later. And went down to see the chair. To this day, I still don't know what happened, but he was furious. He slammed his fist on the table and asked me if I was trying to make the white guys look bad. And it was like the rug was pulled up from under my feet because this was someone that I trusted, someone that I believed in, someone that I thought believed in me. Someone that was a colleague. First of all, he wasn't a dean or anything beyond that. He was a colleague. He was a chair, sharing with the faculty. Since that moment, I was blackballed from the reviews, blackballed from any social events. I never got any calls after that as far as him promoting me or talking. At the same time, life happened, my marriage was failing, things fall apart, as the story goes. Things had fallen apart, and I went to depression, and eventually got a job outside in Canada, which went over the border. I was in Michigan, so Canada wasn't too far. It wasn't too far from my son, as far as his divorce is concerned, just a couple hours away. And I think what got me was that he got his promotion to the school that he wanted to be, so he's now at Berkeley sharing that and our dean where he always wanted to be, and I had to go through this sort of down part just to pick myself up. So I think as far as the sort of feeling included when I was younger, then feeling like it was, I was divided and sort of taken out of the architectural promotional system in my career. I eventually came back here after my parents passed away. I had a lot of family in the DC area. I came here to sort of be with them. And I've been here now in Baltimore for 3 years, and working in Morgan. And I feel like I've had to restart when I was in Canada, which was a great experience, but it wasn't connected to what I was actually doing as much. And since I've been here at Morgan State, I'm feeling like again I have to sort of pick it up again and restart again. So for me, it's been uphill, downhill, and restart. And Morgan and Baltimore is where I'm sort of restarting and picking up like.
So my name is Naomi. I'm one of his students. I've lived in the greater Boarding all my, not excluded, but you know, I decided to just go and just when I pass by somebody, I just decided to say hi to everybody. They're all, you know, kind of hanging out outside in the street. And as I took the initiative, I noticed people do respond. And, you know, all of a sudden you just feel that even though we don't look alike, we may have very different experience, but at that time there is something that you share, you know, be it a smile, be it a child running to you because you look funky. And also I just felt that kind of connection with people who I've never met and will probably not meet again. But assuming I don't move to Pigtown. So we kind of went back to that loft. And it turns out that it was already under contract when we were interested. But I guess we'll just keep looking.
For those that passed, did anyone share this time? Oh, I'm so sorry.
I was going to pass. Sorry. I was going to say, I grew up in Montgomery County, a suburb outside of Washington, D.C., and I moved to the 800 block of Holland Street back in 1989. I lived there for a year before I went off to graduate school. I just wanted to share with you one of my first memories of urban living. I moved in, and I think I needed probably some screws or something of that nature as I was setting up my little home. And I was trying to find a hardware store. And lo and behold, off of Washington Boulevard, one long time ago, there was a little hardware store. And I walked down there, and I remember I opened the door, and here's this old man with a great big nose and white bushy eyebrows, and welcomes me into his store. And I don't know if he had what I needed, but I bought something anyway and listened to him, and we chatted for about 10 to 15 minutes. And that was my first, I would say, one of my first real experiences of urban community.
I grew up in this small town, Linstead, Jamaica. And I grew up on a farm with my grandparents and my mom, this big piece of land. My grandmother was the only one who stayed home. And so every day after school, all the kids would gather, and it would be an activity. She would do our hair, she would sing, she would pray. Sometimes she would cook. I'm gonna get a little emotional here. She's blind, so it was always awful. It was always awful. She cooked our crayons one time. She thought it was fun. But it was something that all the kids appreciated because we understood she cared about us. When we moved to America, obviously I'm here. But when I went back to Jamaica when they passed, they tore her house down, and I haven't felt home ever since then. I work in economic development because I don't want anyone else to feel that. like destroying a place destroys sometimes a community that we don't always understand. And more than anything, I understand that it's not just a physical barrier that may make someone feel excluded. It's a policy, it's a feeling, and that's my story.
Thank you. My name is Daniel. I've been listening to a lot of these stories, and I hear a lot of, that involves my story, so I'm just going to recap that. I'm hearing a lot of people feeling excluded from certain areas, and for all sorts. Go ahead, film me. For all sorts of reasons, and and I just want to say, like, I have a story that kind of like that you all helped me to remember and think of is that, I grew up in suburban Maryland, Howard County, but by the time I got to high school, which was about 1991 or 2, I was like an Olympic aspirant, hoping to become like a wrestler on the Olympic team. So I was like trying to look for the best school to wrestle at. Well, it was Mount St. Joseph at the time in Southwest Baltimore. So I went there and I drove my car on 95 from Columbia, Maryland-ish, when I eventually got my license. I was driving my car all the way into the city. And I remember, like, by the time I was a senior, our wrestling coach had us just like running around the track. So like, this was like 1995 when I graduated. We were just like running around the track before practice because we would have like these 2-hour practice sessions. But like the first 30 minutes would just be like cardio. We would be running around the track. And I was just like so bored with running around the track, around the football field, because the 2 years prior to that, when I was a freshman and a sophomore in high school, he let us run through the neighborhood, down Caton Avenue, Frederick Road, and we went through the cemetery, and yeah, we saw some interesting things, but it just felt just more real, more connected to the place that we were going to school at. So it was just really sad that my last year of high school, the coach had us run around the track. Now, I didn't have a political consciousness back then. I've gone on to like live everywhere but Baltimore in the last 20 years of my life. A documentary filmmaker. I've spent a lot of time in Arizona at the border of Mexico making films about immigration. I went to school in Boston. I lived in New York City for 10 years. But now I'm really feeling called back to Baltimore to run in Baltimore.
Those who haven't shared want to share? Anybody? Anybody else? Share? No?
Spray paint Harbor City Boulevard somewhere. And I think as far as I know, we're still there. So even though the name changed, God, nearly 40 years ago, I guess on the records of infrastructure or something, which is what they needed to look at for making the change, it must still say Harbor City Boulevard. So there's your factoid of the story.
So I want to ask a couple more things of you. Give each other a couple more minutes to go around and get you to respond, to say one or two things about what you just heard. And I'll start, if you don't mind. Belonging in politics.
I think one thing people
What is a community and how does the community relate to individuals?
Just keep it going.
We're supposed to respond.
One or two things, just say one or two things about what you've heard.
Oh, okay. Like the stories that we tell each other, our families, our children, our neighbors, they're powerful.
The most important part of community is the people. It doesn't matter what neighborhood you're in, we're all part of the same community. We're all Baltimoreans. We all happen to be here in the Southwest Baltimore community. Many of us, I think this is a very powerful opportunity to listen and learn to listen to each other's stories. And through there, we can all find some common ground, hopefully.
The vibrance of the human experience.
I'll just say, encourage more stoop sitting on all our parts so we can get to know our neighbors. That's a tradition in Baltimore that's been around for decades. Keep it going so we can get to know each other.
When you destroy someone's home, you destroy a big piece of who they are.
I heard that the shared connection is people.
Diversity and similarity.
I think we're connected. Sounds we have this connection to home, and like it's an organ in our body. It's something that we need to survive, and you can't when you're removed from it or it's removed from you. It's damaging the body. It's violence.
When people share space together, even if it's brief, connections fall.
I would say social connection and segregation.
For me, hearing Ira's presentation about growth of population made me think that displacement is antithetical to growth, because if you displace people, you're not growing, you're not building on what's there, you're kind of just neutral. So we got to do everything we can to keep people in neighborhoods and grow.
Learning how to love one another and care for each other. Stole mine. Mine is hope and just becoming neighborly again.
I just was blown away by everybody's memories and how amazing and interesting it is just to hear about other people's perspectives.
How come politics that are supposed to be for communities and voted for communities seems to always lose their connections to their communities?
I think we have a lot in common. We can build on that.
I always tell people who listen that I love Baltimore, and it's for a lot of reasons, but mostly because of the people, and that gets reinforced with these stories.
Place matters.
Yeah, places where we grow up really stay with us.
Just appreciate everyone doing that and willingness to share their experiences.
Yeah, the idea of policies about communities being for everybody, not just for certain people.
One more thing, can we all stay? Anybody kind of made comments about that? Do anybody want to say what our new story should be? Or what we think we? Okay, that's one. Anybody else? Anybody likes to sing? Okay, good. So when we do this, we usually sing. I've been told I'm a terrible singer. But I've also been told that I can sing. So I don't know what is true. But one of my favorite songs that I believe is of the ages that really signifies and has been used to demonstrate the changes that have taken place in this country because groups got together through common interests and desire, love, and hope. And that's saying, Cook song, A Change Is Gonna Come. Oh, yeah. So who likes to sing that song? I'll start off. I'm gonna try. And just kind of, join me for those who know it. Or you can just hop, or you can clap. Or you can stomp your feet, or you can hug your fellow mate. I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river I've been running. And but I know a change is going to come. Yes, oh, yes it is. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change going to come. Oh, yes it is. There have been times that I couldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is going to come. Oh, yes, yes, yes. I thank y'all so much. I didn't mean to call you out. Thank you for the story. I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate it. How you doing? I continue to try and do this.